You are listening to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Lubman and Joe Shasky coming at you every week with all the best Giants content that you need. Like, rate, review, subscribe. We're coming at you all the time. Part of the Odyssey Sports Network here on 95.7 The Game. So, Shasky, the other day, Monday, before the Giants' first game against the Mariners, I was able, I got to go to a rare weeknight game because I didn't have to go to work the next day. And before the game, part of Gabe Kapler's pregame scrum, which I love going to those because you can post-game, the conversations you have are very focused on the game that just happened. So it's, if you want to ask, questions about other things and kind of get other storylines and get his thoughts on other happenings around the team, I really enjoy those pregame scrums because you really you get a more just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just a more relaxed, more conversation, candid. There it is. That's the word. You get more candid conversations with Gabe Kapler.
Gotcha.
And one of the things he's asked a lot, but it's about their hitting approach. And I want to play the audio in a minute because what Kapler said, the more and more I've been thinking about the last couple of days, it kind of concerns me a little bit in terms of what the Giants are doing at the plate in terms of how they approach opposing pitchers. Shasky, I want to get your thoughts on it too. So here's what Kapler said on just kind of the hitting. If on the question was if certain pitchers provide problems for Giants hitters, and that's where Kapler kind of got into the approach. So this is what Gabe had to say.
The question is, does that same approach work with every type of pitcher? And I think the answer is probably. With a guy who has a cutter and a sinker, by way of example, like let's use Merrill Kelly as an example, because it's all pretty familiar. He's got balls moving away from you, balls moving into you, changeups that are fading down. He can try to elevate a fastball against you. You still have to get him in the middle of a plate and look for a pitcher you can drive. And you still have to be pretty selective on the edges. Now you're facing Jacob deGrom with a 101-mile-an-hour fastball at his best and, some nasty off-speed. Probably the same deal. You got to look for a pitcher you can drive and be aggressive on those, and I'm more patient on pitches that you can. Left-handed pitcher, right-handed pitcher, reliever, starter, it's all the same. I think we tend to overcomplicate things.
So basically the gist of it there is like when it comes to certain pitchers, the Giants, they're very big on focusing on your pitch, find your pitch and drive your pitch. And that's the game. They want to simplify it. Kapler later described as being kind of pitching agnostic, where they really try to have an approach that can almost like a one size fits all approach. Shasky. Now, I know you have your thoughts on kind of on hitting approach here. So when you hear that and you hear this philosophy the Giants are employing at the plate, what kind of goes through your mind there?
Yeah, I get a little frustrated. I'm going to be honest with you. Last night's a great example. Who's the soft tossing lefty that was throwing last night?
For the Mariners? Tommy Milone.
Tommy Milone. Okay. And they're trying to pull the ball over and over and over again, and you're playing into his hand. Now, if you're sitting on a curveball or a breaking ball and you want to drive it down the line, I get it. But guys, go the other way. Change up your approach. They're a very pull-happy team. They have been throughout the entire Farhan era. I'm sure a lot of teams are pull-happy just in general. But are you watching what's happening in Miami? Are you watching this guy Arias? Now, I'm not expecting every single guy. Jock Peterson's not going to be the kid playing for the Marlins right now who's batting close to 400, right? Mm-hmm. That's not going to be who he is. But you can take those elements and execute them in a game. And it gets very frustrating when they only get 5 or 6 hits in a game and they go up there and they're having the same exact at-bat over and over and over again. So to say that we're going to have the same approach 9 times out of 10 no matter what, kind of pisses me off. I'm not going to lie.
Well, no, and I agree. And he's talking about I'd like to kind of I want to use Jock as an example. I want to go back to Monday night because they got absolutely shut down by Brian Wu, local kid.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at what Wu's throwing him that night. It's fastball after fastball after fastball. The fastball's coming. So yes. Why is it a struggle? So I look at a guy like Jock Peterson. He's got his hot spots in the zone. I go on Baseball Savant for this because it's a great job. They do a great job on that website of breaking it down zone by zone. And Jock Peterson, one of his hot zones are in the upper middle part of the strike zone. So when he finds his pitch in that spot of the zone, he's hitting, close to 400 on pitches in that area. But right next to it, though, at the upper inside part of the strike zone, he's hitting a very paltry 167. No, sorry, wrong number. He's hitting a very paltry 000. which is even worse. So he's not getting he's not getting any contact on that inside part of the zone. Okay, where was Bryan Woo throwing those fastballs to Jock on Monday night? Upper inside part of the zone. And that's why you saw Jock, you get into a lot of these 0-2 counts because you're pounding the parts of the zone that these guys don't do well in. And so what do you do now? When you have pitchers, you saw it opening day with Garrett Cole, when you have these pitchers who are on their location and hitting their spots and able to take advantage of those weak zones for the Giants, you put hitters in an 0-2 hole really fast. And if you don't adjust your approach, suddenly your team is leading the league in strikeouts, which is what the Giants are doing. And when I heard that, the more I think about it, it worries me going forward. Just when the Giants offense is humming, it's great. But then when it starts struggling and you start noticing these kind of, I don't know if flaws in the approach is the right way to put it, but it almost comes down to, hear Gabe Kapler saying, you got to get Merrill Kelly to come into the middle of the zone. Well, Merrill Kelly's not going to just come into the middle of the zone because you invite him there. You're basically hoping that something drifts over into your hot spot and you're able to drive it, which basically comes down to is when a guy is on, the plan is hope he screws up.
Well, Sam, there's three things here. Variety is the key to life. Know your personnel and case by case. Pick the cliche that you want to go with, right? That's the way I run my life. I don't talk to you the same way I talk to my wife. I don't talk to my dogs the same way that I talk to my grandfather. You know what I mean? That's just how life is. And so I think it's a silly setting to say, this is how we're going to react no matter what. And this is our approach no matter who we're going up against. Well, what if it's the ninth inning and the bases are loaded and there's no outs and we need one run in to win the game? You're not going to try to hit a sac fly. You're not going to deviate from whatever your normal game day approach is. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I agree with that. The different situations do call for different approaches. And when you have this one size fits all approach, I do think, more often than not, it'll probably work. We've seen it work this year. We saw it work in 2021. One thing that, a story Lamont Wade Jr. was told in the past was, you remember that in the ninth inning of Game 5, he hit that ball that we thought was going to bang off the foul pole and send everybody home happy, and it ends up just going foul. That pitch always kept him up because he said that it was not his pitch. It was not in the part of the zone that he likes to go to. And Lamont Wade Jr., he knows the strike zone better than anybody. Yeah. So with these guys, when they commit to it, they know how to make it work, and they can make great music when they do commit to their zones. But I do think that you box guys in a little bit because there are pitchers out there. There's probably a minority of pitchers who are out there who can hit zones enough to where it becomes a struggle for Giants hitters. But at the same time, when you're facing those pitchers, you got to have a better approach other than just hope he kind of brings one over the middle of the plate. And
exactly.
It worries me long-term, just how viable this strategy is. And I hope there's a little bit of wiggle room that the Giants allow for it, because if not, and these struggles kind of keep, building on themselves, it's going to, Gabe Kapler and by extension, Farhan Zaidi, there's going to be a lot of angry fingers being pointed at them.
It's crazy how, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever you want to call it, can change your outlook on a variety of things. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about where the team is at right now, where the organization is at right now. I think a lot of people are still skeptical on Farhan. They like some of the things that have happened. They like a lot of the different smaller successes, the Dovals, the J.D. Davises, seeing Matos, seeing Casey Schmidt. But I do believe that how they finish this season is really going to matter. And I hope, if I'm running the Giants, I hope it's not just looking at a couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there. I hope they're looking at the full body of work. Because right now, I do believe they're in a better spot than I anticipated at this point in the year, organizationally. Not talking about the win and loss record. I'm about organizationally. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, Sam. I thought they'd be farther along 5 years ago.
I did too, and the doubt on Farhan, the doubt on Kapler, part of the reason that, and we're gonna get to Farhan in a second, but part of the reason that these guys were brought in is because the front office wanted different. That was the whole thing. They wanted next gen thinking. That's what Larry Baer said, and I do think the skepticism comes from just the Giants are operating very differently than how we are used to. Now, different doesn't have to be bad, but the results I'm seeing, it's good, but it's leaving a lot to be desired. And
is that independent of Bruce Bochy? Is that independent of Bruce Bochy's success? Do you think that seeps into how you're looking at this situation? I'm just curious.
I feel like
it's independent.
I think it's unfair to judge Gabe Kapler through the lens of Bruce Bochy.
I totally agree.
That's such a
totally agree.
Clear. And I will be honest, and maybe we can get this another day, but I do sometimes wonder if there is a segment of this Giants fan base that wants to see Kapler and Farhan fail and get fired so they can say, you know what, told you we shouldn't have moved on from Bochy and Sabian. And
you think I'm one of those people?
I think you've had moments. Maybe last year. I feel like you're starting to come around, but I don't know. We'll see when the Rangers come to town next month. We can get more into that conversation.
Well, would you agree that, like, and again, I know there's times where I can feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm an equal opportunist. When you do well, I praise. When you don't, I do rip. Like, that's how it works. You know what I mean? Credits and demerits. And I'm at the point now where they built up some credits from this year, but they were so in the hole from the last couple of years. I'm not talking about when they first inherited. I'm talking about recently. I don't know, Sam. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to answer this question right now in terms of just what this hitting approach means to you. I definitely think it's something to monitor, though, going forward the rest of the season. And if offensive struggles continue like this, and if this season starts to go off the rails because they're striking out too much and not scoring enough runs, then statements like this are going to have to be put under a much bigger microscope than we're putting on them right now. And that's not going to be fun for the Giants if that moment comes. So